Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. And yeah, this is me, my tiny corner of the universe. If you're not following me and you want to know what's going on, please hit the subscribe button, follow, whatever it is that YouTubers do. Anyway, I want to welcome you to Sade's world, and also to apologize that it's taken me this long to actually put this video out. It was recorded in March for International Women's Day. However, editing is not my favorite thing to do, so I kept on putting it off. And you know what they say, tomorrow never comes. So that's why. First off, I want to thank my collaborators, Claudia Young, Honey Gabriel, and Gabriel Akama, because without them I wouldn't have this production of The Slap. And The Slap comes from one of my short stories from my latest collection. And if you haven't seen or picked up a copy, here it is. It's called Choices, a selection of shorts. There's about 21 stories in there, varying length. I'm sure there's one for everyone. But The Slap is about a man and woman and an incident that happened, and their different perspectives and their different take on it. This was performed on Clubhouse, so it's just audio, there's no visuals to it, but I'll try and put something together so that if you're just listening, you can just listen. However, if you're looking at YouTube, I'll have some pictures which just sort of go in and out, but nothing fancy. Anyway, I hope you enjoy and welcome to my channel, and thank you for stopping by. Welcome to Clubhouse. Welcome to my club, Sade's World. For those in the audience who don't know me and have never met me before, I'm an author, I'm a filmmaker, and the story which is being performed today is from my latest book called Choices, a selection of shorts, which is available on Amazon, iBooks, and hopefully soon it will be available on paperback as well. This show, I'm calling it a pre-celebration of International Women's Day, and it's about empowering women all over the world. And I believe this story, which we're about to perform this evening, explores some of the issues that women face and the hard decisions that they have to make, or we have to make. I'm going to invite my amazing collaborators, Claudia, Gabriel, and Honey, to introduce themselves. Honey.
Good evening, all. My name is Honey Gabriel. I'm an actor and voiceover artist, British Nigerian actor and voiceover artist from South London.
Claudia?
Hi, everyone. My name is Claudia Noel. I am so pleased to be here supporting one of my longest standing friends, Sade.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Akama. I am an actor, writer, facilitator, tutor, educator, various things ending with the suffix or. Thank you.
The Slap. Gather round and let me tell you a story about a man and his wife. It's a story about a slap, or is it? Let us be flies on the wall and listen to their account of events. There is his confession, her repudiation, and somewhere in the middle, there is the truth. I beg you, make you open your ear and hear well, oh.
In the name of the Holy Father, it has been too long since I last gave a confession. I've been busy and I've not wanted to be the kind of man who finds God only in his worst times. Having said that, I am truly sorry for the sins I've committed. All I can say is that I am merely a man, one that has been unable to avoid the temptations of the flesh. Let me start by telling you right off the bat that it was not my fault too, but I will take some of the responsibility for what happened.
You want to know what happened? Why we are here instead of living in the home I created. A home that has now probably been taken over by the imposter who so badly wants to become Mrs. Thomas Adepoju. It is a title I will gladly relinquish in time, but first things first. I pray to the Almighty to bless their union the same way He blessed mine. That is all I'm saying, and that is me restraining myself from bringing down the curses of my ancestors on both of them. And that is wretched mother, who caused the whole mess. It was because I was not good enough for her precious son that we are where we are. In truth, I cannot wholly blame my misery on the cliched mother-in-law discourse. I mean, if her precious son had the balls to be the man he told me he was, would we find ourselves here? This is a question I ask, but one to which I cannot find a fulfilling answer. I know it is only right that you must know what happened, what, as Americans like to say, went down. But it is with a heavy heart that I tell you that this tale is as old as time. A tale of wretchedness and betrayal that many can relate to. I know I sound dramatic, but let me tell you this. However it is I sound, this is my story to tell, and this is how I choose to tell you, so please, do not judge me too harshly.
I want you to understand that yes, what I did can be considered wrong. However, if you grab a rattlesnake by the tail, you must expect to be beaten. As the head of the house, a man must correct his wife when she does something wrong. It is our way. She can't talk to him anyhow, because even in the Bible, a husband is the boss of the house. It is written in Ephesians 5, verse 23, for the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. Again, another quote from Timothy 1st, chapter 3. Let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became the transgressor. Yet, she will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith and love and holiness with self-control. Me, I'm a mere mortal man, but these are the words of the Lord our Savior. It tells us that it is through our childbearing that the woman will be saved. Years later, I'm still waiting for the fruit of my loins because you want a career. Am I not earning enough for the both of us? Apart from that, a wife cannot challenge her husband. It is how it is and shall always be. Those are the facts of this Nigerian man's life. Now, so in be you.
Now, so my life, Sha. Anyway, I can tell you for free that it started way before the slap. The slap, however, was the final nail in the coffin of a marriage that had died and been resurrected into a totalitarian state. Yes. I became that woman and didn't even know it. My marriage became a union between more than the two people who stood before God and friends. I have died. I have suffered, Sha. To bring her into the home I created and for her to be carrying his spawn too after all the treatments I went through to get here. God deal. Oh, no. I have died. That revelation shattered me into too many pieces. How does one survive such wounds? That man has killed me and I have become a member of the Walking Dead. But I know I'm not dead. Because sometimes when a memory surfaces and paints itself onto the walls of my brain, the sharp pain in my chest that makes me gasp reminds me that life is still lurking and hanging on. but for you and the grace of God.
I am thankful for everything, but as a man and as a husband, it is my duty to provide heirs that will carry the name of my father and my ancestors. So when, after almost 16 years of wedded bliss, and no issue, what is a man to do but to seek outside what his wife will not give him? As I confess to you, God must forgive me my sins because I am just a man of the flesh. But I ask you, the sin I've committed, is it not very forgivable? After all, Abraham had 3 wives. It is not how I wanted things, but according to my mother, who would not keep quiet, she was growing old and wanted to see at least one grandchild from me before she met her maker. It does not matter that between my sisters, she has 10 grandchildren and a great-grandchild on the way. That should be said about the one on the way, because my niece is only 15 years old. I can only imagine the grief my sister is feeling. But she has no one to blame but herself. She has no one but herself to blame. She sent her to London by herself, no supervision from anyone but the paid teachers in the boarding school she was attending. Also, she could say, my children's school abroad, as if it is a badge of honor or something to be proud of. When we went to school, Jack and Day school was good enough for us. But now we live in an era where there is no difference between a bus conductor and a university graduate. Anyway, this confession is not about our unfortunate circumstances or the state of our fake country.
I failed. I lost control. When they say a person can lose their mind in seconds, that is what happened to me. In between the second I found out and processed it in my mind, I threw the first thing I could lay my hands on at him before he had even finished his sentence. I'm not sure why he felt he could do that. Why he felt emboldened and empowered to bring her into our home. Maybe it was because his mother, who had moved herself in, encouraged the madness that has overcome him since our return. As a matter of fact, since we moved back home to Nigeria, he has changed. He is not the same person who I married in London. The man who cooked for me and made me breakfast in bed and called me his queen. That man was left on the cold shores of England. The man I lived and slept with in Lagos was a Thomas I did not recognize.
No be like that, so before I continue, I want you to know that I love my wife. It is why I married her. It is why I stayed with her despite the fact that she did not give me heirs. When I married her, it was for better or for worse. But as we all know, things can change. She has been a dutiful wife and has done everything a woman should to support her husband. She has been a good wife, but for the small issue of producing an issue. No be my portion. No.
So this is what I get. This is my portion. As I was telling you, Thomas was left in London, and Thomas is the one who showed up in Lagos. I felt the slap and it rendered me mute. The shock alone stole all movement from my limbs. For the 35 years that I've been alive, I have never been slapped. To say it was an unpleasant first is an understatement. It was so hard. I saw not only stars, but Jupiter, Mars, and the rest of the planetary system.
I met Aduke at an African students' conference. She was one of the organizers. We were both students. She was 2 years ahead of me, but I did not let a little thing like that deter me from having her. She was the finest girl on campus and could have had a pick of young strutting bucks. But she chose me, despite the fact that we were from different backgrounds. Me, I come from a family of cocoa farmers, the only son of my mother and the 8th son of my father. She connections to an ex-president who shall remain nameless.
He caught me mid-rant, and the force of his hand against my cheek squished my lip against my teeth, and the coppery taste of blood trickled into my mouth. I sank onto the cream-coloured carpet in our bedroom, and as my vision cleared, I wondered if the specks of red I could see was the blood which had dislodged itself from my mouth when his hand connected to my face. I focused on the tassels of the blue suede Ferragamos I got him for Christmas and willed myself not to shed a single tear. Blue suede filled my vision, and my mind strayed back to the store where I'd bought them. It was on our last trip to London together. I remember my excitement when I spotted them in the window and knew immediately that he'd love them. They didn't have the right size, so they ordered a pair and delivered them the next day. I then had to make sure he did not catch a glimpse before I wrapped them up. Not that I needed to, because he barely spent time in the house we rented for the summer. We could have stayed at my old flat in St. John's Wood, but no, he wanted something a bit more upmarket and central. As if St. John's Wood isn't central. So, instead, he rented a 5-bedroom house in Knightsbridge. A waste of good money when there was only 2 of us. But as he told me at the time, it was his money, not mine. I know why he did it. He wanted to show those his useless friends that he was Mr. Big Money. More like Mr. No Sense.
Anyway, we are not telling a tale about an ex-president. Let me continue with my story. As I was saying, there we were. The rich daddy's girl and the poor boy with no connections and a dodgy visa which had expired. In those days, I changed my name so many times, I sometimes forgot what I was called. Let me tell you right now that I did not marry her for papers. I would have married her sooner or later. It just so happens that the immigration officers were knocking at my door, so sooner came before later. Our romance was short, but since she was of the Mills and Boom generation, I put effort in and was as gallant as Lancelot, but without the suit of armor, sword, and horse. Even though she lived in a 1-bedroom flat in St. John's Wood, she practically moved into my one room, a dilapidated house on Camden Road. I shared it with a bunch of Aussie and Kiwi backpackers who spent more time in the pub and crawled back in the early hours. Just at the point when sleep was catching me or I was fast asleep, they would enter the house like a marauding party. They weren't so bad. I just wish they didn't drink so much and disturb my sleep. The day immigration came knocking, I nipped to the corner shop for a pint of milk. It was 7 a.m., a typical grey morning, the type that makes me yearn for the Lagos sun. That day, we were up early because we both had early morning lectures to get to. She told me later on that she was half-dressed when 5 burly immigration officers barged past her into the room when she opened the door to a violent knock. She was mortified because not only was she half naked, they treated her like a criminal and almost put her in handcuffs. Her student ID and a quick check of status saved her a trip to the detention center. I can verify that it is not a pleasant experience. Now, truth be that. But these are the things we sometimes have to do in order to upgrade and elevate our status.
I know I was in shock. Because as I stared at those blue suede shoes, I could hear Elvis in my ear singing, "You can knock me down, step in my face." For a tiny second, I did wonder if the shoes made him do it. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but that is what went through my brain at the time. Of course, later on, it was different questions that came to the forefront. I wondered how I missed the signs. I wondered what was wrong with me. I wondered why he no longer found me attractive. I wondered how I could have prevented it. I wondered if I could have prevented it. I cast my mind back and examined each action and conversation with a microscopic lens, and still I could make no head nor tail of his betrayal. How did I miss the signs? I'm smart. I'm educated. And they say a wife always knows when her husband is cheating. So how did I miss the signs? They must have been there. Or had I become so complacent in our marriage that I only saw what my heart desired?
Just to finish the story, abusive words were exchanged and a lawsuit was threatened. According to Aduke's law books, a warrant was needed to enter the room. Typical. She's a woman who believes in justice and the law. But then again, she has spent most of her life in the UK, so she knows all about a person's rights. You ask any legal or illegal immigrants, and they will give you a different tale of being stopped and searched merely because they were foreign looking. In those days, the way I dealt with the police or anyone in authority was to cast my eyes to the ground and shrink into my body. I spoke with an accent that was a bastardization of Cockney, South London, and Yoruba. The affixed "ine" at the end of every sentence I uttered added a discordant tone, which at the time made me feel like I'd integrated well into British society. But not Aduke. She walked tall and looked them straight in the eye. She was fearless, and a part of me was jealous of that unflinching way of hers that screamed, "Take me or leave me. I don't care what you think of me." I really admired that about her. But sometimes she can just take it too far. When she gets very angry, she does not become vocal. She becomes very quiet and woe-tide the person who has crossed her. I have crossed her, and as the saying goes, hell hath no fury for a woman scorned. But I have prayed, and I'm confident that with your help and guidance, we will work it out.
When you think about it logically, it is not possible for a person to change so drastically overnight. Maybe I saw the signs and chose to ignore the advance notice of things to come. Never in a million years did I think the husband who promised before God to love and cherish me would physically harm or betray me. It did not enter my consciousness for a second. Never would I have chosen to be with such a person. Is this my hubris? I really don't know. I cannot fathom the reasons. I have searched my conscience, retraced my steps, replayed every conversation, and still I cannot find a reason as to why this has happened.
I will get to that part of the story later. Or maybe not. I will see how I feel. For now, I want to continue the saga of the immigration raid. It was God that saved me. It was not my portion that day, Sha. Yes, I'm a lapsed Catholic, but you can rest assured that I went to St. Michael's Church on Camden Road that very evening and offered my thanks. God deal. On my way back from the corner shop, I spotted the van and the flashing blue lights, so I kept walking with my head down and my hood up. Of course, I had to go like all the other people going about their daily business. If I hadn't slowed to cast a brief glance, I might have looked suspicious.
A vile deed done can never be undone. Like bullets from a gun or the cut of a knife, the damage lasts a lifetime. What sin have I committed other than to fall in love? So I find myself back in the house I grew up in, wondering how this has all come to pass. I should have heeded my mother's warning. She recognized him for who he was. But love, as they say, is not only blind, but also deaf and mute.
I remember that it started to drizzle as I made my way to Holloway Tube and patiently waited for Aduke to turn up. In those days, I couldn't afford a mobile phone contract, so there was no way to let her know where I was. Needless to say, we did not return to my room. I packed up my stuff in the middle of the night and moved into our messy flat. And although they were an ocean away, I could feel her parents' disapproval all the way down the trunk line when her mother called. We got married a couple of weeks later in a registry office and the proper wedding sometime after that. So, 16 years later, we found ourselves here. Nasu in Bio.
A whole me? In the moment after it happened, it certainly rendered me mute. I sat on the floor, tears in my eyes, blood in my mouth, and my dignity in fragments. Shock was part of it, but the biggest part of the equation was the burgeoning bond and the need to protect you. It was that morning that Dr. Toyosi had confirmed the news of your existence. You were my miracle, and the thought of any harm befalling you incapacitated my will to fight back. However, the simple fact of the matter is, I was not going to be one of those women. The type who is used as a punching bag because they're solely relying on the husband as the breadwinner. Neither am I the type who lets shame strike me dumb. I was weak, but strong enough to pack my load and find my square roots.
My plan was never to settle in the UK. It was to get the best education they had to offer and find my square roots. Give me my Nigeria any day of the week. They can take their cold weather and their stiff upper lip. But the problem happens when two become one. It is then that life becomes a series of compromises. So, instead of moving back as I planned, we stayed in London, and I got as far as I could get in a society where the color of my skin limited my options, despite my BA, PhD, and MBA. I wanted to come home. My career was going well, so she wanted to stay. We eventually compromised, and I've made it work. So far, life in Lagos has been more economically advantageous than life in London.
As they say, there is more than one way to skin a rabbit. I was not going to hide his violence with makeup or sunglasses, nor was I going to say I walked into a wall. Let the media talk and write what they want, as they have. Let the faceless Twitter trolls have their say. There are those who tell me if I was a good wife, he would not have strayed. Not only did I love him from the depths of my heart, I fucked him every night until he came like a breached dam. Yet I still wasn't enough for him. Then there are the ones who insist that monogamy is an Oyinbo concept that does not agree with the African man, and as an African woman, we should accept the mistresses and other wives. I cannot judge those who accept such behavior. However, it is not what I want for my life, for myself. God forbid, bad thing, no.
Life in Lagos has been good, but things have not been plain sailing. It all started to go wrong when my mother moved herself in and started putting pressure on us to produce a grandchild. There was nothing I could say to appease her. It was not as if I had not been doing the deed. Despite the extra headache of having her in the house, I could not ask her to leave. She's my mother, so I must look after her. Besides, her food tastes better than Aduke's, who is not the greatest cook.
to continue my tale of despair, as I sat on the floor of our bedroom and watched specks of my blood coagulate onto the cream carpet, I plotted my revenge because my rage was of Herculean proportions. In the garage, there was pesticide the gardeners used for the weeds. I could plan a dinner and give him a dose that will make him dearly departed in front of his guests. A great idea, but I had you to consider. When you grow up and eventually ask me what happened to your father, what would I say? The option of committing matricide beckoned and enticed me, but I am a Christian, so instead I prayed for strength and restraint. Strength to leave, and restraint from committing an act that would be too much of a burden on my conscience.
I'm not one of those Nigerian men that go looking for a second wife. Despite certain things, Aduke was enough. One of the main reasons I married her was because the sex was better than great. In fact, I can tell you that my first orgasm with her was orgasmic. Oh, if only we had our own children, everything would have been fine. Believe me when I say I did not go out looking for the love of another woman. The others the others do not count because Aduke never found out and they were just one-off dalliances. Veronica, on the other hand, she was my assistant. She knew me inside out and anticipated my every need. It is not every assistant that brings her boss proper edika icon as cooked by the Efik people of Akwa Ibom.
As I was saying to you, I willed myself to be strong, so my ability to react was limited. My only option was to show the world the man I married and remove myself from my own home. The selfie of my swollen, bloodied lip with the hashtag "why I'm leaving him" is a trending virus on social media, and like any social media virus, it came with the trolls and the fake solicitude. But now that it's out there, I found that the easiest way to weather the storm is not to read the comments. Words hurt, and it is best to avoid adding to my torment.
It is true when they say that the way to get a man is to cook him a good meal. After the Edika icon, Vero and I became close, and naturally, one thing led to another. One night, we walked late. I took her for a meal to say thank you. She rubbed my leg and suggested we get a room instead of driving because I was drunk. In the 16 years I've been married, it is the only time that I've had feelings for another woman. But I know my wife and I know the wahala that will follow. Vero wanted more than I could give her, but I told her I was happily married. 3 months later, she told me she was happily pregnant. And here we are. My wife has packed her things and left, and my first child will be born any second now.
I was not going to live the life of my mother, so instead, with my cap in hand, I returned to my parents' house. With his multiple children about town, I wasn't quite sure what mouth my father would put to the issue. He is a man with a strong opinion on everything, even the things he knows nothing about. When he came home and saw me and my suitcases in the hallway, he said nothing other than to get him a bottle of iced water from the fridge. I think he wanted to say something, but I caught the look my mother gave him. Despite his philandering, he would never lay a finger on my mother. She would have cut him into pieces and served him to his relatives. Infidelity she can happily turn a blind eye to, as long as it is not rubbed in her face.
God works in mysterious ways. I have no intention of divorcing and marrying a second wife. Although I have sinned, my vows are sacred, and so I come to beg forgiveness. Yes, the child will be born outside of matrimony. There's nothing I can do to prevent that. My mistake caused by my naivete was thinking that Aduke would accept the situation. Lagos is a big city. There's no harm in them living in one part of town, in a different part of town where they will never meet.
Let me tell you this for free. Despite her faults, my mother has made me the woman I am today. And now I understand her need for me to be the best and not waste my opportunities and my privilege. She wanted more for me than she got for herself, and I'm grateful for her nagging and her wisdom. She was so upset when she found out I got married to Thomas. She refused to talk to me. She thought I was pregnant. And it wasn't until a year later, when I flew to the States for Victor's graduation, that she thawed. Despite the thaw, she never took to Thomas. She said there was something grasping about him. I mean, it didn't help that his sister seduced my father's best friend during the Nigerian wedding we eventually had 5 years after we got married. Yeah, I don't like to think about that too much. But I sometimes wonder if I would have married Thomas so quickly if it hadn't been for the fact that he was about to get deported. Oh, the arrogance of youth. What would my life have looked like? I know it's pointless playing the what-if game, especially since now I have you. 10 years of trying, 3 failed IVF treatments. And I'd given up on the idea of being a mother. Then one day, my whole world shifted. The same day I found out about you, and that you're on your way, is the same way I found out your father has betrayed his vows. It's the same day he finally showed me who he truly is. And I realised that the life I thought I had been built on dissimulation. After all, a bird does not change its feathers because the weather is bad.
As for the other matter, when she came at me like a woman possessed, I merely defended myself. What you see on Twitter and Facebook is merely the magic of Photoshop. But that is okay. I understand what she's trying to do by blackening my good name. So there you have it. That is the story. That is what happened. I'm not a violent man who beats his wife. I never have. Lie, it will never happen. This was just a one-off. We can work it out. We will work it out with your guidance. In the name of Jesus, we will overcome this little stumbling block. What has passed, I cannot change, but the future is yet to be written. I am very sorry for my sins. I dread the pains of hell. But most of all, I have offended you, my God. I firmly resolve, with your help, to amend my life. Amen and amen and amen.
I don't know if you can understand a word I am telling you. Well, I do know that you can't understand, but one day you will. I know that one day I will have to tell you the truth, at least a version of the truth. The reason why you do not have your father in your life. I mean, part of me knows that keeping you from him is depriving you, but what values can he really teach you, considering where we are? Besides, I just cannot bear to breathe the same air as him. In fact, Lagos was not big enough to keep him from my sphere, which is why I've moved here to Abuja to restart my life. I see them looking at me, the whispers, the judgment. But I've nothing to be ashamed of, and I can carry my head high because I am the true daughter of my father. These are things taught to me by my mother, and of which I will teach you. To be proud, to be kind, to be compassionate, to be strong, to love, but most of all, to not take dog poo from anyone, no matter what. These things I will try my best to live by. I might not always be successful, but I will do my best. After all, the child of an elephant can never become a dwarf. Is it not so?
That I won't have to climb, and there will be battles that I won't have to fight, but victory or defeat, it's up to me to decide. But how can I expect to win if I never tried? I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I started from. Ooh, nobody told me the road will be easy, and I don't believe he's brought me this far to leave me.
Free at last, free at last. It's time to let go of the past. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the show. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for coming to my room.